Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. This is an unannounced live, and it's intentionally so because I do not like when a lot of people attend, but I would appreciate if they watch later. I think also because I do not have an admin now, and I have I do not have a lot of experience with these things, and I prefer it this way, to be honest. Anyway, gathering subtleties. This, inshallah, will be a regular thing. These are the things that I can't teach in a proper dars of Al-Ilm Sharif, in a proper lecture or dars in Al-Madrasa. Things that I usually read in books that will never be taught or will never be read in a proper in a proper scholarly manner. And usually I have these things and I do not have enough time to sit and record a video, especially when I do not have anyone who is helping me with the recording of the video. And then you have the problem of uploading it somewhere or giving it to the Shaykh who do this work in Al Madrasa Hanbali. So this is easier and probably more efficient, at least this is what I think now. Today I am talking about more than one topic. I doubt that I will receive questions, but let's make sure that I'm not giving any fatawi or fatwa in this, and I might answer questions if they are well phrased. Hopefully, there will be no questions, and if I know the answer, this is obvious, I think. I was reading earlier tonight. I was reading a book entitled التصوف المقارن, Comparative Sufism, by Dr. Muhammad Ghallab, خريج جامعة Lyon. I think this is in France, Lyon University, University of Lyon, and the professor of philosophy in Al-Azhar University. An old book, and when I saw the title, I remember when I saw the title the first time, تصوف المقارن, comparative تصوف, comparative Sufism, I thought about how the different Sufi turuq would work together or interact with one another. But this is not what I found in the book. Basically, he's focusing on Islamic tasawwuf in general as one thing, and then you have the Sufism of India, the Sufism of Persia, the Sufism of other nations and other religions, even Christianity, which was very interesting. And I found that book to be a very beneficial book to read, even if you have no background. Easy language, easy organization, easy everything. But this is not the issue. The issue is that when he was presenting the main figures of Islamic Tasawwuf, he talked about Sidi Abdul Qadir al-Jilani radiallahu anhu, and then he mentioned some of the things attributed to him that might not be very accurate. And he said that you will find a lot of these statements in a book like Qala'id al-Jawahir. Qala'id al-Jawahir is a book that presents the life and the biography of Sidi Abdul Qadir, praises him, and it's authored by a scholar who has an affiliation with the Hanbali madhab, or apparently this is the case. I do not know much about him. Al-Tadafi al-Hanbali, if I'm pronouncing the name correctly. And all these years, I had this feeling about the book. It's a very good book, but it has a lot of things that I internally doubt. I'm not sure. This doesn't sound. It's like when al muhaddis, when the scholar of hadith has this feeling about hadith, and he doesn't, or he hasn't investigated it enough yet to say that yes, the hidden defect comes from the fact that so and so happened. So so I had the same feeling, but without proof, and it was just a feeling. And this is not a field or a study or a discipline like hidden defects or ilal hadith. This is not like that. And and then I said to myself, okay, anyway, whatever is mentioned here, Sayyidi Abdul Qadir is definitely greater than any praise as long as it makes sense. Yes. What is the authentic, what are the authentic accounts then? Where do we find authentic information on the life and the accomplishments of someone like Sayyidi Abdul Qadir? So the easy answer in my head is yes, any authentic book authored by an authentic scholar, well known, a man or a woman who was a part of the scholarly community, not majhul. Yes, it's the same theory of narrators of hadith, the unknown narrator, and how problematic an unknown, an actually unknown narrator is. Relying on the narrations of al majahil, this opens the door to fabrication. Yes. So I said, yeah, this is very strange, but whatever. I will try to have an interpretation of the strange things I read. Otherwise, I'll just disregard them because we have enough authentic books telling us about the karamat, the miracles, the accomplishments of Sayyidi Abdul Qadir radiallahu anhu, and I think this is more than enough. Um, then I found that Dr. Muhammad Ghalab was saying here in the book, and this I think this is the I'm not sure if this is the only version of the book. مكتبة نهضة مصر. Yes, and the year is there is no year. This book was owned by a man who was doing his masters in Al Azhar Sharif, 1967. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. But anyway, maybe it's the only version or the only edition. And on page 70, um, yes, 50, 60, 63 and 62. I remember 62 and 61. 61 in particular, he says this is just an example of what has been attributed to Al-Jilani, Sidi Abdul Qadir, falsely. Um, and it was written, or it was uh, cited from some of the fabricated books like Qala'id al-Jawahir in the virtues of Shaykh Abdul Qadir. And it was authored by Muhammad ibn Yahya الدافي الحنبلي وليس فيه ما يعتمد عليه. Uh, there is nothing in it that can be reliable. Um, and on the margins there is Futuh al-Ghaib, which was written actually by Sidi Abdul Qadir. Yes, because this is how it is published, two books in one. This was very common, especially in the early 20th century. Um, I'm not sure. Maybe it's too harsh to put it like this, calling it a kitab muntahal, or maybe muntahil. Yes, like a fabricating or fabricated book. But if I agree, I would definitely agree that some of the things there are very strange. And his theory, and this is very interesting, his theory is, and this is on page 60, that they um, um, fabricated or made up these statements that would prove him an arrogant person, or that would prove him an, an unstable person, um, or so, in in order to prevent people from listening to him, to prevent people from maybe following his tariqah, or his enemies, yes, or out of envy, something like this. And then he gave some examples, and I do not like reading the examples, because this is definitely um, a very strange thing to be attributed to Sidi Abdul Qadir. But at the same time, we see not similar, but statements that people think to be problematic, things that Sidi Abdul Qadir actually said. And you'll find this in some of the videos that we made on this channel, about uh, Sidi Abdul Qadir al Jilani, talking about his wilaya, talking about his station, and other things. And I believe we explained that to the extent that we quoted Ibn Taymiyyah. Ibn Taymiyyah, who saw that some people consider this problematic, or these statements problematic, and then he explained that actually they have very good meanings, but people misunderstood him and couldn't understand the Sufi language that he speaks. And this is very important, because of this issue of the Sufi language. Any fan, any discipline of al-ilm, any scholarly group, eventually they will have a language developed over the years, a language that might not be understood by a person who speaks the same language, for instance, Arabic, English, or whatever, but he doesn't know um, in Arabic we would say al-ma'ani al-urfiyya, or al-ma'ani al-urfiyya al-khassa. This is a theory in languages that we usually teach the students and study. The first thing that I usually say this is the first thing that you study when you go to Al-Azhar, and I mean by that, that any sheikh would need to explain that to you in order to explain the terminology of any discipline. That you have literal meanings, linguistic meanings, you have shari'i meanings used by shari'. Yes, shari', Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the source of shari', I mean, and you'll have a language that is developed by people's customs, traditions, and their use of that language. And then branched from that, you'll have a language developed by the scholars of any discipline. And we are thinking about disciplines like ulum, and I think you might even consider uh, any field. Yes, like carpenters might have a development of the language that is their own, and not a lot of people will understand it. Um, Even in Egypt. I have this funny thing in Egypt. If you go to eat the very traditional plate or very traditional food in Egypt, like kushari, the ingredients have special names that only those involved in the making of the food, only those involved understand it, and you would need to be taught what these things mean if you want to understand the language. And I think this is just a simple idea that can be uh, it's predictable, and I think a lot of people can will find this easy to grasp. The problem begins when you judge, for instance, a meaning developed by al-muhaddithin or developed by Sufiya against the standards of of the language of the standardized language, or of the formal language, or so. His Do you know, I have here in my study, I have more than 3 or 4 books here, just here, on this topic. The terminology of a Sufi dictionary or a glossary of the Sufi terms, and similar books discuss this topic. But I think this is very important. Besides, when Sufiya talk, they use a literary language. It's like reading poetry. And this is the reason why we keep telling people you have to study literature, not just to read the tasawwuf, but a big part of it is to understand the tasawwuf. Um, and this is another discussion, definitely for another time. Anyway, Qala'id al-Zahir, I had something in my heart uh, that that told me that this book might not be the most uh, reliable book on the topic of the virtues and the life of Sayyidi Abdul Qadir al-Jilani radiyallahu anhu, and I was correct. Or at least I think so. The other thing that I was reading earlier tonight as well was a book on the history of Al-Jam' al-Azhar al-Sharif. Al-Jam' al-Azhar al-Sharif. Wa alaykum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What is your point on reading Hanbali's syllabus with books of Imam Ghazali? It's fine. It's fine. Let's not make this thing a problematic thing. يعني reading the books of Imam al-Ghazali is fine. I am the second person who has this problem with the concept of the criterion of knowledge. Yes, I really respect Imam al-Ghazali. I call him Hujjatul Islam al-Ghazali. This is not to please al-Ash'ariyya or anything. I really like him. I respect him. Scholars of our madhab respected him so much that they abridged his work, Ihya Ulumuddin, twice. Once when Ibn al-Jawzi did it, and then they saw that it was not enough, so they wanted to appropriate the book into Hanbali version or something. And then another time, in the famous Mukhtasar Minhaj al-Qasidin, yes, so it's fine to be Hanbali and to read the work of Imam Al Ghazali. But at some point, we'll have to explain to the students that there was a turning point in history, and that Imam Al Ghazali was involved in that when he authored the criterion of knowledge in his, يعني, let's say, some sort of a debate with the philosophers, the criterion of knowledge. Not just that, how the ummah received, how the population, especially the Ash'ari and the population of al-Mutakallimin, how they received the criterion of knowledge. This does not contradict with that. Imam al-Ghazali is a great imam, and his books should be read. There are well-known things that one should be aware of when reading his books. Al-Hafiz al-Iraq authored his takhrij to help people see the ahadith there. Yes, his books are fine books that should be read with a shaykh or a scholar. So this should be clear, inshallah. I think I answered your question. The other book is Tarikh al-Jami' al-Azhar. Uh, Tarikh al-Jami' al-Azhar. Muhammad Abdullah Anan. Yes. And this is the second edition, 1958, 1378. Yes, I'm not sure if you can find this online. I think some of the versions of this book are there online. I do not have a specific part because I finished reading this and I read it again. I had finished reading this before, and then I read it again maybe last week, and I was thinking about something in this. He's comparing the concept of al-mu'id, and the word mu'id is an Arabic word, and the word mu'id literally means a person who repeats. Yes, a person who repeats something. And I think you can guess that this is the job of a senior student who would sit where Shaykh gives the dars and help the other students, or would repeat the dars to them. Durus in the past were really formal, at least the majority of al-durus were really formal. We do things nowadays that al mashayikh wouldn't do. Yes. For instance, I would sit with you, and if you have a question, you can interrupt me. But this existed, but I do not want to be distracted. Anyway, I would sit with you, and if you do not understand anything, I might simplify things and I might explain it in different ways. Uh, in Egypt, Al Mashaykh would even speak in Egyptian, not in the standard classical Arabic. Sometimes they would speak in Egyptian. This is very common, just to make sure that the students understand. Because these Mashaykh or these scholars might not have mu'ideen. And then he was talking about how this is similar to the Western paradigm, where you have teaching assistants. Yes. Um, he says that it's a similar concept, just to make people familiar with what al mu'id is. And he said, yeah, it's ancient. It existed 1,000 years ago, and it continued existing after that, because he is recording the history of Al Jam al Azhar, and he's beginning with the first era, first generations, and then after that the golden era, as he called it, and then he continued until the collapse and fall of Al Jam al Azhar, relative collapse and fall of Al Jam al Azhar. Anyway, um, what I noticed is what I noticed is that he is interested in recording the concept of al mu'id that always existed. I think this would make the job of a sheikh much easier. Why? Because he would just dictate a dars once in the most formal of ways. I'm not changing my way now. I'm just contemplating. Yes. So in the most formal of ways, and he wouldn't need to comment on his commentary. Sometimes I need, for instance, in the Arabic durus, I dictate the hashi. The student is supposed to write this as a hashi, like in classical hawash. Then the hashi is written carefully and it's concise, what I've dictated. So it needs a little bit of an explanation in order for the student to understand, for instance, what this pronoun, what the pronoun is referring to, or what and other things, or what has been omitted here, and also or the meaning of al-atf, if I said where or aw, and what it means here, or the meaning of al-idafa. Yes. And other aspects. And I think Shaykh wouldn't need to explain the hawashi that he dictated, and al-mu'id would go to a Shaykh and make sure that he understands everything, and then he would go back to the students and repeat the dars. And this repetition would be uh, would be a repetition of the dars, its benefits, everything that the Shaykh said, because students in the past used to write very quickly, and they used it's a dictation. Yes. Nowadays things are different, and Al Mu'id will not nowadays repeat the dars in the exact same manner. In our madrasa, we have mashayikh who would actually sit and teach the books, uh, relying on what they've studied, relying on the notes that they have written, relying on the books that we've produced. It's not the exact same thing. On a slightly different note, I want to circle back to this. Um, Discussions in the past were different. If if it's an interactive dars where you and I speak all the time or discuss all the time, this means that I am a scholar, and this is obvious. It's obvious that the sheikh is the scholar. Yes. And then you in that scenario will be an advanced student or an intermediate student who has the ability to discuss in a scholarly manner. Yes. And this is supposed to be education and everything, but in a scholarly manner. This is how things get discussed. Not just to interrupt, because I didn't understand that part. This wouldn't be the interruption. I would allow this in my drus because nowadays we need to make sure that people um, engage as much as possible in the dars because they're not used to studying in this interactive manner, and most of the time you are just asking the students to speak, to ask, to share in a proper dars. On YouTube everything is possible and people do everything, but forget about YouTube. This is not the real help. um, in an actual I said an actual dars and I was talking about online rules. I would never say that an online dars is an actual dars. Let's say it's the 80-85% of an actual dars. So in a semi-actual dars, the student is supposed to be interactive, to ask the questions, to make to repeat something to make sure that he understands it, and so on. The problem is uh, that students would be able to do a lot with al mu'id that they can't actually do with the sheikh or the scholar or the teacher, the main teacher. Yes. For instance, the stupid questions to be filtered by al mu'id. I remember very well going to the durus of some of my mashayikh. Let's categorize the durus of my mashayikh in Jam al-Azhar into two categories, two main categories. One, a famous sheikh, famous among the students of knowledge. This dars will be attended by everyone in the past, in the near past, and like 10 years ago, like 13 years ago. Al-Jam al-Azhar would be open all day. Everyone can enter, and whatever you find, you can sit and attend. Even if it's not a prayer time, yes. Um, so you'll find all types of people there, including serious, very serious students of knowledge, um, and a lot of foreign students from Asia or from certain countries in Asia, like Malaysia, Indonesia, these countries. Very serious students and a lot of audience attending. And if this sheikh is a great scholar, maybe, or like uh, one of the senior scholars in Al Azhar al Sharif or in Egypt, you would find that other younger scholars are attending the dars. And I saw that experience. I experienced it, and I heard it from my mashayikh as well. The fact that you can never ask a question, that you can never go approach the sheikh and ask a question, that you can never send a piece of paper with your question written on it. You can do it, but it will be filtered. Yes. And sometimes they will give you clear instructions, those younger scholars, yes, who are somehow in a non-formal way supervising the dars and what happens in it and how students act and these things, and they would tell you clearly, listen, if you have a question, approach us. If we can't answer your question, we will raise it to a sheikh. Yes. And they would say this gently. Sometimes it depends on your attitude, it depends on their manners as well, but this used to happen a lot. um, this is one category of the durus of my mashayikh. The other category, the dars has 5 students or 7 students. This happened with, guess what, more knowledgeable mashayikh, more knowledgeable, less famous. So for instance, he never appears on TV. Yes. So he's less famous, he is less known, maybe he does not have a PhD, so he does not teach at the university. Yes. And this means that he is exposed to less students, and he explains very difficult books, so all the foreign students are not interested in that because they haven't covered the main curriculum yet. So 5 students, 7 students, even I would exaggerate and say you would sit in Al Azhar Sharif and then you find a cat passing or something. If the cat could ask a question, a sheikh would interact with it and answer it. And these were very beneficial durus, but sometimes very annoying. Why? You'd find a man who enters, and there is no mu'id in this dars, and there is nothing in this dars. This sheikh does not even have the number of, I wouldn't say the same number of students. You know, the number of younger scholars who would attend the dars of the first type. He doesn't even have this as the number of students, and he's very knowledgeable. Maybe one of the best. Yes. Then a man comes. We've never seen him before. This is probably khalas. This is the last third of the book. We've never seen him before. He came. He sat down. All fine, sure. Yes. Sometimes I would go and attend the last dars on a book because this is what I quote. Mhm. So he would come and then he would ask irrelevant questions because he misunderstood everything that the Shaykh said. And no one to prevent him, and no one to tell him what this is, and no one to maybe give him a piece of advice that, yes, I think you should start with something easier, maybe something for beginners. This is for mm, uh, intermediate students also. Yes. So this was the experience, and I had this sheikh, and he was a great sheikh, uh, and some of other my other mashaykh rahimahumullah, um, they are great Sufi people. Anyone who would talk to him, he would try and respond, even when the question is very strange, even when the question is irrelevant to the dars, even when it's a waste of time. Yes, but he wouldn't let them yeah, be embarrassed or anything. Hmm. So he would try to have this conversation with them gently. But other students are just sitting there waiting for this to end in order for the dars to be continued. The absence of al mu'id is sometimes a very difficult thing, and not just for the organizational part of the dars, because of the educational part of it, because of al ilm sharif al mu'id. And what is the benefit that al mu'id gains? Training. Students when they become intermediate, upper intermediate, advanced students, they have to receive this sort of training, to encounter audience, to sit and talk to audience. Yes. And before becoming scholars, and they have this green card. What is it? I am still a student, I am still learning. It is easy for me not to know without complicating anything. A scholar might not know, and he would say, I do not know. But this might complicate things. Yes. This is the reason why a lot of scholars would tell you, allow me some time to think about it. Yes. Hmm. Especially when it's a sensitive matter. Yeah. uh, MashaAllah. Barakallahu fikum. Ya Sheikh Irfan Iftiqar. Thank you so much. I, I do not have an answer to the part of to this part of how I can come to Egypt. Yes, maybe the Mashaykh al Madrasa might help you. Uh, and I do not teach here. I do not have a teaching post at this moment here, and this will not happen in the future because of some of my personal preferences. So maybe you consider studying online, inshallah. منهاج السالكين القاصدين. Yes, books of tasawwuf. This is very good. Thank you. Um, some scholars, and I saw this, would prevent their students from being mu'ideen un because of unscholarly. manners, for instance, jealousy, or and this has never happened with me. So I'm just talking about things that I saw. Yes, and they would prevent them from having any role in teaching any students, even if it's just for beginners and they have already studied with them for 13, 15 years or so. But on the other hand, you would see that Al Mu'ideen sometimes misbehave. Al Mu'ideen, this is the plural of the word Mu'id. Sometimes they misbehave because because they think that they have acquired something. And if I were a Mu'id, I would just make the best use of this time. I am teaching, and there is no pressure. I'm teaching, so I'm practicing this act of التصوير. Yes, يعني portraying these مسائل. Yes, explaining them, portraying them. This is the highest level of um, investigating المتن, or investigating discourse. I usually tell the students about this, and I think if any of the students are here, they will be they will know what I'm going to say. I always talk about a concept which is called istifa'u nadar. Yes, istifa'u nadar. Uh, istifa'u nadar literally means another means ijtihad or investigation or something like this. Yes. Um, الاستيفاء means to do this in a perfect manner. Yes. يعني in your analysis of a text, in your analysis of any discourse, uh, in your examination of any matter of al, you will never be as perfect as when you are teaching it to someone. And I told them about the stories of great muhaddithin who just narrate what they have memorized to the wall, and sometimes, like in the case of some other scholars, to uh, to their slaves. Yes. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. بارك الله فيكم وفي هولندا. We love Holland because of al-mashayikh in al-madrasa from the Netherlands, أو هولندا. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect it and increase the number of Muslims in it. So to delve deeply into the matn or the text, whether matn or something else, and this reflection, uh, the consideration, the extensive consideration of the matn, and the um, the extensive reflection. This never happens unless you are teaching. So this is the great chance for al mu'id without the pressure. At the end of the day, this mu'id can say what? Wallahi, let's ask the Shaykh. Let's ask the real scholars, and just doing this, there is no pressure on him. So he's, but at the same time, you'll find this mu'id who thinks that he's something now, and he does not want to continue as a mu'id, and he wants to teach a couple of days or a week as a mu'id, and then the next week or the following week as the main sheikh, and it doesn't happen like this. طبعا, in my mind now, I'm talking about all these concepts and what happens in the real world, our world, if this is the real world, which is an ugly truth. um, None of this happens. Maybe in very few madaris, in very few settings, unfortunately. But again, it will never harm anyone if we just remind them of how things should be, at least in my point of view. I forgot. I should have started this live with um, um, uh, mentioning that these are one of the most blessed of days in the year, uh, that reminds us of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, Sayyidina Ismail, and the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. These are the best of days after Ramadan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from all of us our prayers, our fasting, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uh, grant us the strength and faith to fast on the day of Arafah and to worship Him uh, in these days. And may these days bring you nearer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and purify your hearts and fill your homes with peace, forgiveness, and light. Ameen. نعم. يا رب آمين. الحمد لله رب العالمين. وكيف حالكم أنتم؟ جزاكم الله خير. يا رب بجاه النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. نعم. وعيد Mubarak in advance. I think I've finished what I needed to talk about, and these will remain unannounced, unfortunately. Maybe I will be able later, but it's late now. It's late. I wouldn't be able to send a message to the Mashaykh and tell them, okay, post this on our group or somewhere. But at the end of the day, this will remain, hopefully, unless anything changes, on the channel somewhere. One of the Mashaykh will be able to put it somewhere. I have no idea how these things go. And I might be able to answer questions if they meet my condition, but no fatawi, please. Because usually with the fatwa, I need to ask you more questions than you ask me. It's very difficult to give fatawi like this. And I'm not a Wahhabi to give fatwa express, you see. Yes. And if you do not have questions, I will just leave. And I'm not sure when I will be live again. I think I have a feeling that this might be a new habit, especially that I have a lot of topics that I noted down without recording any videos to talk about them. And this is apparently much easier and more casual, not from a scholarly perspective though, but more casual, less preparation for the video, the use of the camera is easy, and so many other things. Which tafsir would you recommend for students of knowledge for today's time? Tafsir Jalalain or Tafsir Nasafi? Listen, I do not like when I'm asked the question, then I'm given few options to choose from. For instance, let's talk about this concept first. This 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 manner is not very good. Yes, because you are thinking about two options and you want me to choose one. It doesn't work like this. But the core of the question is correct. And when we studied a lot of disciplines that might touch on this subject, for instance, the manners of debate and manners of research and the manners of asking a question, the manners of the learner and the Shaykh, and the manners of the dars, even though this is not a dars, it's not really a good thing to give someone to give anyone limited choices and then you say yes. What do you think? This is not really what he thinks. This is what he thinks about what you think. Yes, you narrowed it down, and now he has these two options. It's like the casual question of, okay, if you will eat one food for the rest of your life, is it A or B? And in al-ilm al-sharif it doesn't work like this. To expound on this, I will just let you know that Tafsir al-Jalalain belongs to um, to a level which is completely different from the level of Tafsir al-Nasafi. Tafsir al-Nasafi is a more complicated tafsir, by the way, and people do not see that. Maybe what deceives them into believing that it's something. that belongs to the same level of Tafsir al-Jalalain is its size. But even that, this is not true. Yes, Tafsir al-Nasafi is a more complicated, more advanced tafsir. Al-Jalalain is much easier. I prefer for someone to read the Hashiyah with Tafsir al-Jalalain. I'm talking about students of knowledge at this point. For laymen or for people who do not study and yet they want to read the tafsir, I usually advise against it. And if they do not speak Arabic, I would just say, okay, a translation, which is an explanation. There is no translation of the Quran. They are all explanations, or they are the translations that do the explanation. So this is the reason why they are called translations. And if this is the case, then they just should read a translation of the Quran. If we are talking about a student of knowledge, he has to know that the tafsir is one of the last disciplines that he learns. Yes, he might read the tafsir, he might study a little bit of it, but as a discipline, his ala, his tool, his abilities need to develop, his skills need to develop first in all disciplines. Yes, all the disciplines that students usually study, then he studies tafsir. For a student of knowledge to consult a tafsir, Al Jalalain is perfect. If you are reading Hashia like Sawi, and I really like Hashia Sawi. Nasafi is also good, but it's advanced, and see the Hawashi written on it, and you'll be convinced that it's an advanced tafsir. I really like التحرير والتنوير, but it's really advanced, and you will have to skip things that you do not understand, because this is my experience with some of the students and mashayikh here in Egypt that tried to read the التحرير والتنوير. تفسير ابن الجوزي, I find the تفسير ابن الجوزي ده المسير a great تفسير. Maybe I'm a little bit attached to it because of how I was taught Zad al-Masir by my Quran Shaykh when I was really young. So this is the first thing that he read with me and that we read in Al-Ilm al-Sharif in general. I didn't even know that this was Al-Ilm. He said Zad al-Masir by Ibn al-Jawzi, and that's it. Because I was memorizing the Quran with him, and he was a Hanafi scholar from Al-Azhar al-Sharif. طيب الله ثراه. I think this might have covered the question that you asked. يا مولانا الفاضل حفظكم الله ونفعكم بالعلم. Ah, uh, let's see what's this. Okay. Um, do you have an advice for beginner students or not? My advice is consistency, and my advice is to understand that al-ilmu mawahib, and you do not really know how the intellect works, and you do not really know how your soul is or what it actually is. Yes, these are secrets, صح? And al-ilm is not an equation. If I wake up early, if I study these hours, I will be a scholar. These are things that we usually say to give people an estimate, to give people, maybe to encourage them. I'm against this, but this is what's done usually. My advice is to understand that al-ilm mawahib. What is the meaning of al-ilm mawahib? It's like a gift. You might be gifted, you might not be gifted. Either way, study, because al-ilm in itself is a worship, and it's a great shortcut. Yes, it's risky. Like if you're like myself and you do not pray much and you do not fast much, and you're not among the greatest worshippers of Islam, then we've gotten nothing left except al-ilm sharif, yeah. صح? Hoping that one day it will be for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anyway, uh, consistency and knowing that al-ilmu mawahib. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gifts you al-ilm, and that's it. You do everything you study, but this is not the way al-ilm is acquired. Yes, you might think so, but Allah is the real door of things and the only door of things. So al-ilmu mawahib. I always say to the students, I think I woke up one day and yes, I was much better than before, and I never knew how it happened. I mean in العلم, and I never knew how it happened. وخلاص الحمد لله على ما وهب وأعطى. نعم. Um, عليكم السلام ورحمة الله. I do not understand. I think this is French. I think I now understand it after reading it carefully. I do not know the name of this person. Yes, I think if anyone denounces Wahhabism, this is a great idea. I'm not sure what language it is. I think French. Yes. I studied some French, but I'm not qualified enough to interact in the language. So I would say anyone who refutes Wahhabism has a point in his general stance that he is refuting Wahhabism. Then we will ask a lot of questions whether he's qualified or not, whether he understands what al-Wahhabiyya is or not, and so many other things. But the general stance that al-Wahhabiyya should be refuted, that al-Wahhabiyya is a very strange and stupid madhab, this should be definitely, at least this should be respected. Then you might disagree with people who treat this inappropriately because they're not qualified or because they do not actually know what al-Wahhabiyya is, but they had the fitra maybe of rejecting it. I do not, and I do not know the name of this person. I'm really sorry. Reading the first chapter of the book Manazil al-Sa'iri changed my life. Yes. What advice would you give to someone like me to practically progress further, progress further in the book? Manazil al-Sa'irin is a complicated book. The author is is a very important man in the history of التصوف. Um, I would pause Manazil al-Sa'irin then, and I would study more Athari Aqidah. I'm saying Athari Aqidah because you chose to read that book. Yes. And Athari Aqidah is the Hanbali Aqidah. And even if you want to be Ash'ari, even if you are Ash'ari, just for pause any study of Al-Aqidah, then go study the Athari Aqidah. يعني study the Aqidah of Ibn Qudama, study the Aqidah of Al-Hafiz Diyauddin al-Maqdisi, the Hanbali Athari Aqidah. And then revisit Manazil al-Sa'iri. I think you'll start reading it a little bit differently and know that this is an advanced book, and the explanations of this book are really advanced. And when I say the explanations, I'm not talking about the explanation of our companion Shaykh Shamsuddin ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyya. I'm talking about better explanations, not better, higher explanations and more authentic ones, let's say. So I would say I need you to read more on the topic of al-Aqidah, al-Athariyya or al-Hanbaliyya, or to learn more about it. Remember, I usually prefer that you go and learn and study instead of reading on your own. Remember this. I'm just talking in general now by saying reading, studying. Now, uh, and if you have patience, and I hope that you have patience, then after reading or studying the basics of the Athari Aqidah, if you haven't studied them, then you read less complicated books of Tasawwuf. Again, like books of Ibn Qudam, like his Wasiyya, like the book of Fear or Khawf, and other books of Al-Wasiti radiyallahu anhu, and maybe things that were written by Sidi Abdul Qadir radiyallahu anhu, simpler things that were written by Sidi Abdul Qadir radiyallahu anhu. Now, Jamil, your Latin, I mean, this is not your name, but this is your This is what's written in front of me. Your language is just fine. And by the way, if this was French, I understood it. And when I read French, I understand a lot of it. Yes, but I do not speak French, and I will never trust myself with interacting in the French language. I might read something and misunderstand it. This would be catastrophic. Hmm. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله. يا سيدي والله أكرمك الله. Could you clarify regarding the Hanbali position on ترك الصلاة? Ibn Rajab and Ibn Taymiyyah seem to hold that somebody can be kafir even before going to judge. I appreciate. I can't read Qarubo. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this correctly. I'm really sorry. I really appreciate in the wording of your question you said, and hopefully other people will benefit from this. He said, Fulan and Fulan, Ibn Rajab and Ibn Taymiyyah seem to hold that somebody can be kafir. Yes, even before going to judge. I assure you that Ibn Rajab is different. Ibn Taymiyyah, Shaykh Taqi al-Din radiallahu anhu wa afa anhu, this fluctuation in his writings, yes, because of this very the abundance of rasail, short texts and letters that he sent to people. Sometimes you read and you say, I can never tell what he wants or what his position is in general, yes, or whether he had one position or not. Sometimes this is how you feel. I will explain. So I will not answer the question, but I will not answer the question in a traditional way. I'll just give you this answer and let's see if this suffices you. The way I explain it to students, and I think this is a problem with Al Wahhabiyya, is there is a difference between considering someone a kafir in dunya, and this is a legal matter. That's it. 100% legal matter that has legal consequences. A Muslim is buried with Muslims. A kafir is not buried with Muslims. A Muslim is inherited. A kafir, no. And so on. Yes. Is there a possibility that in Allah's ilm means knowledge, a man is a kafir, yet we consider him a Muslim? Yes, definitely. And we have a lot of evidence. How are you going to know? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals to you how. He sent a messenger. If he calls someone a kafir, he is a kafir. Listen to the other part of it. Is there a possibility that a man who has been announced a kafir by a judge, that is there a possibility that he is actually a Muslim in his heart? Yes. So the rulings of the dunya are rulings of the dunya. And only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows how things are in al-akhirah. Yes. Rulings of the dunya should be respected. But rulings of the dunya, alhamdulillah, nahmadullah, that they rely on strict fiqh. Yes. Let me read the question again. Regarding Hanbali, the Tark al-Salah, Ibn Rajab and Taymiyyah seem to hold that somebody can be kafir even before going to then he can be a kafir in reality. Yes. But not before the Islamic community, not before the judge. How should we deal with him as a Muslim? Where should he be buried with Muslims? Should he be inherited? Yes. What is the evidence? Long discussion. Not a long by the way, the evidence is very simple. But this is going to be a long discussion, and we've covered this where in Sheikh Sulaiman ibn Abdul Wahhab's response to his brother. You will tell me, but this was not Sulaiman ibn Abdul Khalas. In that response and refutation of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, Qarn al-Shaykh. He discussed this and he kept repeating things. And he brought the statements of whom? Ibn Taymiyyah. Because if I were to claim something, I would just claim that this is not the position of Ibn Taymiyyah unless it's explained the way I've just explained it. وهكذا. يعني يا أخي الكريم. شوف اهو two friends. I have both عمدة الفقه, also منهاج القاصدين, also I have قلوب. Okay, so I have some Hanbali books. You have books in al-fiqh, and you have other books. Very good, يا شيخ عرفان حفظكم الله. As I said, maybe try or consider learning more about the Athari Aqeedah, because it will reflect on your reading of Tasawwuf. Remember, Tasawwuf al Aqeedah, they go hand in hand, especially in the Hanbali Madhab. One of the qualities of the Hanbali Madhab is that it covers these three aspects in the most consistent of ways, and the transition, when you move from one discipline to the other, is a very smooth one. Yes, you can call yourself Hanbali in fiqh, Hanbali in aqaid, Hanbali in tasawwuf. Hanbali in tasawwuf, this is the tariqah of Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, but Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal was represented by Sidi Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, hence people say Qadiri. For a Hanbali, this triangle, let's say, is the perfect combination. So consider the Athari Aqeedah, Maulana al-Fadl. Can you explain the Ruhani, I think? The Ruhani science, I think. And is it a trustworthy way to get rid of a jinn possession nowadays instead of traditional ruqyah? And is the knowledge learned from heart and not books? Well, this is a good question. It's a complicated but a good question. If going live this hour means that I will receive good questions, خلاص, then let's do it every day. Okay. طيب, let's say. I do not think if I try to translate Ruhani science into Arabic, I will say al-ilm al-ruhani. I heard this, I think I read this. Sometimes they say al-ilm al-ladunni, but this is now quite different. Ruhani, related to al-ruh, to the soul. What does this actually mean? I do not, this is just my point of view. I do not like differentiating between aspects of al-ilm. I do not like saying there is ilm ruhan and then there is the traditional ilm in the books. I think al-ilm in the books is the same as al-ilm al-ruhani if al-ilm al-ruhani exists in the first place. I believe in the existence of al-ilm al-ladunni. But this is a complicated concept. How is al-ilm acquired? A student can easily just say yes, studying with the Mashaykh, reading books, memorizing. This is not the acquisition of al-ilm. These are the worships that you do to, in your opinion, in your eyes, to acquire al-ilm. In fact, this is not al-ilm is acquired. Al-ilm is acquired when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills that you become knowledgeable. It's this development that happens and you do not know how it happened. Yes. Especially in al-ilm, you can see that al-wasita, switch on, switch off the light on, the light off. This is easy. You can see how your movement, your doing, affects something. And usually the Mashaykh of Tasawwuf would tell you this is an illusion. This is an illusion. Allah is the only doer of things. In al-ilm, you do not know what leads to what. Sometimes you sit and you repeat something 50 times and it's memorized. Sometimes you repeat it 1,000 times and it's not memorized. And people, there are differences. So it's not an equation, it's not a chemical equation. How is al-ilm acquired? But if you ask me, it's all ruhani. It's all from Allah. But we open the door to ad-dalal, to misguidance. Once we start saying yes, Allah reveals to people things, unlike how they are in Sharia. خلاص, this leads to al-kufr directly, easily. Like the Prophet ﷺ said, if you see me in a dream, then you've seen me actually. And the way we explain this to the students is, do you know how he looked? So you have to know, then you can say that you actually saw him in a dream. And whatever he tells you in a dream is something that you have to follow and you have to obey. So this is especially for you. And this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, but the sign of authenticity will always be that he does not command you to do something other than what is Sharia commands you, or what the Sharia prohibits you, or so. When it comes to the position of al jinn, this is really a serious matter. To the best of my knowledge, most of the practices in this are false, and the truth in what people do about these issues is, I do not. I will just give a number. I would say 5% or something. And in my heart, it's less. Yeah. Al-Ruqya is definitely uh, the correct way of dealing with these things. The use of Ma' Zamzam, yes. Reading Al-Quran, reciting Al-Quran on or to the water in a manner, yes. These things might help. I do not like discussing these things because I do not want to open this door. A lot of people will approach me seeking that, and I would like to save myself for al-ilm, to be honest. So I will just stop there. Ya Allah, we have a lot of things. طيب. Allah Mustaan. Let's see. Ya Salam. Um, I do not know. Can you explain? خلاص. جزاك الله خير كثيرا وجزاكم خيرا كثيرا يا شيخ. عليكم السلام ورحمة الله. Please, in the ablution is 3 times obligatory, or 1 or 2 washes enough? I think enough. Barakallahu feek. Wa feekum barakallah. Yes. Uh, do you mean when removing al-najasa, when removing filth? Or do you mean in wudu? 3 times, if you are talking about al-wudu, if you are talking about al-wudu, 3 times are not obligatory. One is actually the obligatory, and the any additional washes will be recommended, mustahab, but do not exceed 3, because this is not recommended exceeding 3. And remember that a wash is that covers the whole area that has to be washed. So maybe if you wash, let's say, the area of the arm by washing half of the arm first and then the other half, this is just one wash, but 2 halves. I think this is obvious. I hope this answers your question. This is a general question, so I'm answering it. What is the Hanbali position on Al-Hadra and Rose? رقص Rose I would say yeah, but رقص لا والعياذ بالله يا أخي الكريم هذا الضلال المبين. This is just misguidance والعياذ بالله. And I do not think that any of this should be attributed to التصوف. And I'm trying to keep an open mind and everything, but in our tariqah, because you asked about the Hanbali position, and in the Qadiri tariqah, the authentic representation of the Qadiri tariqah, will never tolerate these things. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ يَا أَخِي الْكَرِيمِ. Raqs, no way. Hadra is a gathering for dhikr. This is this is a great practice. Yes, Hadra for a dhikr out loud. This is a great practice because it's a very old Sufi tradition, and it does not need textual evidence. Yes, and to be honest, I do not feel like refuting the Wahhabi uh, ideas on that because it's a waste of time, in my opinion. So Al-Hadra is a great Sufi practice. Remember, Al-Hadra should not have any musical instruments. And remember that Al-Hadra should be done in the most uh, serious of manners, because this is the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like Majlis al-Ilm. I always compare Al-Hadra to Majlis al-Ilm. Yes? Now, this is a concise answer. So, how to combine Athari Aqid with Zuhd in Hanbali Madhab? Should I combine both Imam Ahmad books with Abdul Qadir al-Jilani? Uh, الزهد is something that you will be. I missed the question. My apologies. Another question I have is regarding women leading Salah. I have read that some Hanabila allowed women to lead men or their family while on travel. What is the Hanbali position? Lala. This is incorrect. Whatever is mentioned in the question is invalid, incorrect, doesn't exist. In the Hanbali Madhab, there is something that exists in the Hanbali Madhab for educational purposes that is detailed in the books of al-fiqh that has nothing to do with this, that is not even close to that. And you would, no one, unless you know the ruling, you would never guess what it is. But it's only studied in the circles of al-ilm. In general, you can easily say that if a woman take it like this. If a woman leads a prayer of men, then you can easily say that this prayer is invalid. In order for this prayer to be valid, you will have to have conditions that are nearly impossible nowadays, and there is no room for qiyas, and it's only done for educational purposes. And this is written in our books of fiqh, very detailed, and it should not be misrepresented like this. How to combine Athari Aqidah with Zuhd? Listen, you learn the Athari Aqidah as if there is no other discipline in the world. And when you learn Zuhd, you do not learn Zuhd directly from books of Zuhd. And there are books of Zuhd, yes. You learn Tasawwuf first, and then you read the hadith of Zuhd, or the hadith of Zuhd, or the reports of Zuhd in the books of Zuhd, and you read the chapters of Zuhd in the books of Tasawwuf. But any book of Tasawwuf has an organization. It's organized in a way. And in some books, the thing that leads to a Zuhd is not a Zuhd. Yes? You'll have to learn a lot of concepts first. For instance, you will need to learn Al-Aqidah first, as I mentioned before, and you will have to learn a lot of concepts in Tasawwuf first. For instance, the issue of entitlement. I deserve whatever. When we kill this in a man, then we can start talking about the zuhd then, but not before that. What is your position? I do not really have positions of my own, unless it's a very complicated issue. And وحدة الوجود, and how would you explain وحدة الوجود? How would you explain وحدة الوجود? This is difficult to be done now. I missed more, I think. I didn't miss anything. طيب, wait. وحدة الوجود, very difficult to explain now. But this is one of the most noble, or the noblest, and the most honorable Sufi concepts. And I'm not trying to explain it, I'm just giving you a hint. وحدة الوجود means nothing exists. A real, a, nothing exists except for Allah when you compare other existences with Allah's existence. Yes. Now, it's a little bit philosophical, yes, but this is good philosophy, not bad philosophy. I believe. Uh, wait, and the other question. My position on Ibn Arabi. I do not have a position on Ibn Arabi al-Hatim Ta'izi. I really respect him. If this is what you mean by my position, I really respect him. And like my Mashaykh, I usually say that his books and Ibn Taymiyyah's books should not be read by anyone who is not a scholar, or, if we are being lenient, an advanced student of knowledge. Uh, yes. And when it comes to Ibn al-Arabi, we had a course in madrasa defending his position, some of his positions, yes, quoting him and explaining his statements. Hmm. Do you know that in one of the stages of his life, Ibn Taymiyyah respected Ibn al-Arabi a lot? But then he read something that he wrote, and Ibn al-Arabi had a lot of enemies, but his tasawwuf is philosophical tasawwuf. This is a manner. Sometimes they categorize tasawwuf into philosophical, what, Sunni, and by this they mean tasawwuf. I do not want to say it like this. Sometimes they mean Ash'ari, yes, which is fine. And they say Salafi or Athari tasawwuf, and this would be Sidi Abdul Qadir among others, definitely. And then you have philosophical tasawwuf, like Muhyiddin ibn Arabi and others. Radiyallahu anhu. His statements are sometimes complicated, yes, and metaphorical, and a person needs to study a lot of literature for reading this. But if you are Zahiri, if you are Wahhabi, these things will be really difficult, and you'll see nothing but the kufr of this man and the kufr of so many other people, sometimes including Ibn Taymiyyah himself, as we saw, yani, that some of the Wahhabiyya would call Ibn Taymiyyah a kafir. يعني, I hope this suffices you at least for now. طيب, لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. أين وصلنا؟ What is وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله. حفظكم الله, شكرا جزيلا. Can a person learn tasawwuf from a shaykh that has passed away? From his books, yani? From his teachings, yes. Yes, definitely, yes. But this is what we do all the time. Unless you mean something else, I'm not sure. Thank you, Shaykh, for all this guidance. Ya Akhil Kareem, no problem. I am quite sad that when reading Imam Ghazali's works, I cannot connect. Yeah, but when studying Shaykh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani's works, I can understand quickly, very easily. طيب, if you accept my insight, I wouldn't even call it advice. But if you accept my insight, I would say let's not make this a way of judging anything in the world, let alone al-ilm sharif, especially something like the tasawwuf. Okay, but if what you are saying is that you are comfortable reading Sidi Abdul Qadir or Sidi Abdul Qadir's works, then please continue. If this is what you mean, that I'm more comfortable reading Sidi Abdul Qadir's works, yes. And remember, I would always prefer you to go and study with any sheikh that you trust, even if it's the local sheikh. If you see that the local sheikh is a good man who doesn't really care for the unscholarly stuff, who is not a traditional preacher who just gives al-khutbah of al-Jumu'ah and leaves. إن كنت تتوسم فيه خيرا يعني. This is in Arabic, and it means if you think that this might be a good man who might be able to help me, even if he's not the perfect manifestation of scholarship or a scholar. Even, do you know how we define a sheikh? A sheikh is a perfect al-kamilu fi fannihi, a perfect person in a discipline, a perfect scholar in a discipline. So there is a level of perfection here. Even if you think that he is an advanced student of knowledge, a good mujtahid. By mujtahid I mean a man who makes efforts, and not a mujtahid يعني an independent faqih. If you think so, seek his help, his guidance. This would be great. I would do this if I were you. When I was a child, I used to approach the mashayikh in the masjid, and if I have a question, I would just try and ask. I reflect on this now. Some of them were not actually scholars, but I did my best. Yes. When I was a teenager, if I knew that this sheikh, the imam of that masjid, read the musnad of Imam Ahmad to someone, I would just go and ask him to read the musnad with him, even though I know that I'm probably more knowledgeable than him. Yes, because I've studied properly, and he is an imam of the masjid, and he read some hadith books to the mashayikh, and he does not study a madhab properly and other things. Yes. I'm sorry if this is too much for you, and I hope this suffices you. And in general, if you feel comfortable reading Sayyidi Abdul Qadir's works, then continue, please. But never say, okay, I'm not reading Ghazali. And never deprive yourself of the great blessing of Allah. Like the works of Imam al-Ghazali radiallahu anhu is great. It's great contributions to al-ilm al-sharif. Yeah. Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm familiar with your name, Sheikh Ayman. Can I pray Isha in the prayer room close to my house? Even though they do Isha only 1 hour after Maghrib. They told me a lot. We need to work and it's difficult now in summer. Ah, are they just 1 hour after Maghrib, regardless of whether the time enters or not? They just. Listen, can I pray Isha in the prayer room close to my house? How about you pray alone then? Yani, if you're seeking, I do not want to give fatawi. I would have to ask you a lot of questions. Yes. I guarantee you that this situation, as you described it, is not the proper way of praying Isha. Yes. So maybe pray at home. Maybe. If you have a wife, if you have brother, if you have someone, maybe pray with them at home. I hope this helps you. If you need more, I can't really give fatwa here. I need to ask you more questions. Yes, as I said before. Thanks for العفو يا سيدي. You are welcome. جزاك وجزاكم خيرا يا سيدي. What is Imam Ahmad's position on Imam Abi Hanifa? He had a good opinion of Imam Abi Hanifa. Yes, and is the position that the Wahhabiyya mentioned of the Imam that he disliked Imam Abu Hanifa unauthentic? No, it is authentic. It was a part of his life. I think he changed his position on Abi Hanifa. Radiallahu an Abi Hanifa, he didn't have the complete picture. Remember, he's a critic of Al-Jarh al-Ta'dil. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. أهلا وسهلا ومرحبا يا أبا الزهراء. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. حفظنا الله وإياكم يا سيدي. Shaykh, what do you believe regarding Ibn Qayyim and Fana al-Nar? It was attributed to Ibn Taymiyyah and also to his student Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi. I've read that he held it. Is there any indication he didn't author the book on it, or perhaps he repented from it? We think that both of them changed their positions on that matter. Sometimes people say that it was um, falsely attributed to Sheikh Taqi. Yes, I have my doubts on that. Sheikh Taqi liked tackling a lot of issues of al-aqa'id in the ways of al-mutakallimin, even though he claims the madhab of salaf and he claims al-athar. Yes, but this is not a discussion for another time. Anyway, Ibn, both of them, as I understand, repented or changed their position, or there was a misunderstanding on this matter. فرحمهم الله وغفر لهم. Hmm. Would you prefer Shaykh Shaykh Waliullah? Good example for combining Sharia with Tasawwuf. Do you know about Shaykh Waliullah al-Dihlawi? I definitely know about Shaykh Waliullah al-Dihlawi. Yes, I definitely know. I enjoy when I read his books. I enjoy reading his books and I enjoy when I um, see his arguments. I do not know or I do not remember what is meant by this combination. Yes, I prefer that we bring the book, we read the page or the pages, and we analyze them instead of just talking about al-ilm. You understand? So I prefer that we bring that and we read the original text together. This is how I can do this here, by the way, but I do not know where to find this. جزاك الله خير وجزاكم خيرا يا أخي الكريم الفاضل حفظكم الله. Is it appropriate to apply the madhab of Sidi Abdul Qadir in theoretical tasawwuf, where our own tariqah has not articulated a clear approach? Or is it more appropriate to observe taslim on the issue? Appropriate to apply the madhab of Sidi Abdul Qadir in theoretical tasawwuf, where our tariqah has not articulated a clear approach? I assure you that our tariqah, whatever you want, our tariqah has يعني made it clear what our approach should be. In any practical issue, just why? Because the supervision of this will be the job of whom? The Shaykh, the guiding Shaykh, the perfect guiding Shaykh. You see? And you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised how things are detailed in that. To answer your question, yes, but without the assumption that our tariqah has not articulated. But the application of what we study in theory, yes. Hmm? I'm sorry, the application, I'm sorry, the application of what we study in theory, yes. But again, this will go back to whom? The perfect guiding Shaykh. And remember, the practical side of tasawwuf is a serious matter. Why? You will practice differently from how I practice. And we are guided by the same Shaykh. And both practices are the manifestations of the theory that you studied in his books, radiallahu anh. Hopefully you will understand this, ya Fadilt al-Shaykh Abu al-Zahra. Are you a student? Do we study together, ya Fadilt al-Shaykh? Ya Abu al-Zahra, are you the I recognize you from the durus, صح? شيخنا الكريم بارك الله فيكم يا سيدي الفاضل. I mean by learning tasawwuf from a sheikh who has passed away, like how some Sufis say they come in dreams and visions, other ways, and teach them. Wallahi, it's a good sign. If a sheikh of tasawwuf comes to me in a dream, it's a good sign. Yes, there is always a possibility that it is a shaitan, because a shaitan can يعني be in the picture or the depiction of any person other than the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. صح? So let's be careful. And then you receive guidance from your sheikh in dreams. So that's it. That's it. Hmm. You're not governed by a tariqah. should be governed by a tariq. You see? Uh, and maybe I am the wrong person to discuss this, but I have a bad opinion on how people claim certain things in dreams. Do you know that we read in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad radiallahu anhu, that if a person lies about a dream, uh, he fabricates a dream that he never saw, that on the day of judgment, and I'm just يعني, explaining the meaning of the hadith without being 100% accurate, but this is found in the hadith. On the day of judgment, he will be required to make a knot out of barley or two barleys, to make a knot out of them, and this is impossible. And he will be tortured like this until he succeeds in making a knot. And Allahu A'lam if he will ever succeed. And the context of the hadith shows you that this will never happen. So he will keep. So he will be tortured in the hellfire. Allahu A'lam until when. So a man who lies about a dream, this is the dangerous thing, especially if you're lying about seeing some righteous people or so. Anyway, uh, we will have to ask a lot of questions if someone says, I am mutasawwif and I receive guidance when my shaykh comes to me in my dreams. And I will always stop there and talk about discernment, tamyiz. So there is a possibility that this is a shaitan. Can you know what al haqq is and what al batil is? Do you know what the truth is? What falsehood is? But if you tell me, for instance, I am a student and a follower of the Qadiri tariq, and I saw Sidi Abdul Qadir in a dream, and he commanded me to increase my fasting. For instance, great guidance, Ya Akhil Kareemullah. Yal, let's go ahead. Yeah, go ahead and let's do this together. Hmm. You see the difference? الله المستعان. مرحبا يا شيخ إسماعيل كيف حالكم الشريفة. Hmm. Thank you for your response. You are welcome. Are students able to study with you in person in Cairo? Very difficult, yeah. Shaykh H1. Very difficult. يعني make dua for us. Yes, in general. For Muslimin wal Hanabil. In general. Hmm. جزاك الله خيرا وجزاكم خيرا يا شيخ أين. Shaykh, I have taken dars with you. I've stopped going for Isha in summer. So I asked because I have heard some saying that if there is hardship, we can join Maghrib and Isha. Yes, if there is hardship, we can join Maghrib or Isha. Yes. Joining in Maghrib or Isha is praying them consecutively. During the time of one of them, consecutively. Maghrib and back to back Isha. You see? And this hardship, the evaluation of the hardship, requires the fatwa of a mufti who sits with you and asks you. Sometimes I say maybe it's a little bit exaggerated in simpler questions and simpler cases. Al Mufti will ask you more questions than the questions you have for him. والله المستعان. خلاص. بارك الله فيكم يا أبا الزهراء. My apologies. I didn't have stanzas for Al-Burda al-Sharif, for the translation, the poetic translation of Al-Baydawi. I didn't have any because I was entertaining Sheikh Yasin, Hafidhullah. Hmm. Sheikh, what is the treatment of minority views within the Hanbali madhab? I think this question is going somewhere. Let's see the rest of it. Are any non-mu'tamad positions invalid? Are any non-mu'tamad positions invalid? Okay. Since there were some Hanabila who held shadh views, like person who doesn't perform any. Where is the rest? Is there a rest that I can't see? I have this. طيب, I will share some things with you until Sheikh قربكم الله يا مولانا. ال- I did the slow mode. Tonight I was حاطب بليل. I played with these settings of the YouTube live. Hopefully it's working. Hope ignorance is a bliss. Maybe there is a disaster now, and I know nothing about it. So I did slow mode, so it allows you to take some time, a minute, until you respond again or until you ask again. I really like the slow mode feature. This is how I understood it. And I did another thing that only subscribers who have subscribed for 6 months at least or so. I really like these features. I'm not sure if this is the right way of using them. بس خلاص. One of the five pillars, who doesn't perform any of the five pillars, then he is spiritually kafir, like rich person who doesn't pay zakah or recite. There is, listen, the beginning of the question was a good thing. The example is a little bit problematic because there is nothing like. Listen, I do not confirm or I do not approve of spiritually kafir part of anything. I do not know what this is. I prefer more common terminology, let's say. So forget about spiritually kafir, or maybe you are trying to say, yeah, that in reality he's a kafir. Any discussion of the kufr of a person in reality can't even be. You can't have this discussion in the first place. How are you going to know? You can only say, listen, according to the rulings of the dunya, this is a kafir person. Only al-Wahhabi are interested in that, in discussing these things. عجيب, very strange. Forget about the spiritually kafir part, and forget about the examples. There are shadh positions. There are positions that do not belong, non-mu'tamad positions, yes, that do not even belong to the Hanbali body, yes. Sometimes it has nothing to do with with what the position is. It has to do with the transmission. Mm. Sometimes it's a false claim that Imam Ahmad said something he didn't say. Yes. Sometimes it is because of the attribution of this to someone. And we studied this with the Mashaykh in madrasa, but in very advanced books. You have someone like Alauddin al-Mardawi, his laqab, or his one of his like names or titles, al-Munaqqih. يعني the one who purifies and the one who filters. Yes. And we do not just follow him with blind taqleed. There is an area of ijtihad there, alhamdulillah. Anyway, so if you are asking about non-mu'tamad positions that are invalid, that should not belong to the Hanbali madhab, this exists in our madhab, and for various reasons. And alhamdulillah that we had scholars who did a great job on that matter. Alhamdulillah. Slow mo works well, Sheikh. Alhamdulillah, ya akhi al-kareem al-fadil. It does not allow people to spam the chat. Wallah, who was spamming this? Yeah. Sheikh Muhammad Zulqarnain is asking if you plan on doing Umdat al-Talib in Arabic sometime soon. I'm familiar with the name of Sheikh Muhammad Zulqarnain. Nafa'allahu bih. Wajazahu khairan for his question. And pardon me if this is not relevant to the discussion. لا يا أخي, no problem. I'm not discussing anything. I've already discussed what I wanted to discuss regarding Sidi Abdul Qadir and the famous book Qala'id al-Zawahir. And this you'll find this at the beginning of the video or the live. And also I discussed this part of Al-Mu'id in the book The History of Al-Jami' al-Azhar. Umdat al-Talib in Arabic, I've done a great portion of Umdat al-Talib in Arabic, والله. خلاص, I finished Al-Ibadat. I'm doing Dalil al-Talib in Arabic. It's more advanced, I know. I'm not sure if I will ever have time to go back, because I want to finish Dalil al-Talib. I've started the Rawd al-Murbi before, and now I want to restart Rawd al-Murbi after finishing Dalil al-Talib. I want to continue the Hanbali curriculum until I finish it. Now, if one has some worry since seeing a dream of lots of ulama physically fighting their dream, would it be possible to give some guidance on this, please? As heart not resting, thank you. Uh, this is HR. If you go back in the comments, you'll see a question regarding Al Jinn. These are the two topics, Al Jinn and dreams. I have knowledge in both areas. If I open this door, I will be questions on these things will bury me. I enjoy I enjoy the privilege of not being famous, of not being well known, and I hide most of the time. Yes, you know here in Cairo, nearly all my circles have no idea that I do this, that I am a sheikh who can teach some of al-ilm or so. Because I do not want to be. Uh, so, let's have an agreement. I hope you respect this agreement. I will tell you about this one, but let's not make a habit out of it. I do not know a lot of things that I would need to know before interpreting this. The interpretation of dreams is sometimes complicated because things are not as they appear. It's an art. It has to be supported by al-ilm al-sharif. Yes? And one has to know about symbolism and to study. I can't say a little bit of literature, a lot of literature. Hmm. The first thing that came to my mind when you saw a lot of scholars fighting is something about your life and how you study al-ilm. It has nothing to do with these scholars and their fighting. This is the first thing that came to my head, and I do not know much. Yes. Interpreting dreams like al-fatwa might require one to discuss things with you first. And then after interpreting the dream, I will tell you, and I will never be certain that this is the true interpretation. فlet's leave it there يا مولانا الفاضل. HR. Shaykh, what is your guidance? Who is not satisfied? Yes, someone who's not satisfied with one madhab, reading multiple madhabs. And like, for example, um, I like rulings of Zakawi, opinions of Hudud, I think, of Abu Hanif. This is not okay. Listen, liking or preferring or these things, this has nothing to do with how you should study al-fiqh. It's um, it's a disciplinary issue. You have to study al-fiqh, you have to study al-madhab, and because you want to develop. If you are just a casual reader of al-fiqh, and you read here and you read there just to be a cultured person, sure, why not? But if you want to be a student of knowledge, forget about all this. Get rid of all the books of the other madhab that you're not studying and just choose one madhab and study it. In Arabic, they usually tell us واجب صناعي. This has been a very trending statement used by a lot of contemporary teachers. واجب صناعي means that the صناعة of al-fiqh, that the art of al-fiqh necessitates that you study one method to excel, to reach the expected outcome. Yes. If you are just a casual reader and you read here and there, sure. I'm not sure why you're doing this, but fine. it's better than nothing. And I think that someone like you, who's that interested, if you compare yourself with others who have no idea what the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ are, and have you ever encountered Muslims who do not understand what you mean by the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and they tell you, "Do you mean the Quran? Because there is the Quran, and that's it." And you might think these are Quraniyun, this these kuffar يعني, who believe that there is nothing except Al Quran Al Kareem, and they are not. You explain to them, yes, that the Prophet ﷺ said things. Compare yourself with the poor. خلاص. If you do not go and study al-ilm al-sharif, and if you become anything else, يعني, you are that interested and you do not want to study al-ilm al-sharif, very strange يا أخي الكريم. Ah, subhanallah. And one last thing, forget about liking or disliking rulings, يا مولانا. This is not a way of doing anything. يعني, your feelings should be, I wouldn't say it should be killed. Let's just put them aside. طيب. I think this inshallah is enough. Well, you're welcome, and you pray for me as well. جزاكم الله خير. طيب. I had a good experience. Why? Because I did not see any catastrophic questions. Yes. So this might be working actually. Mhm. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm not sure what this means. I think it's a good thing. Thank you so much. هيا قروب قربكم الله وأدناكم. So I had a good experience. Hopefully it will always be like this. Do not tell anyone about this life. Do not tell anyone. Do not tell anyone to subscribe or do anything. Keep this as a secret. Yes, and let's have it a calm and hopefully fruitful يعني discussion or conversation. I will usually follow the same paradigm. I will start with things that I've already read, and then I will be able to discuss with you whatever you want to discuss. And if I do not know or I can't answer, I will just make it clear, inshallah. Uh, yeah, Abu Zahra, would you please take this question, keep it somewhere, and repeat it to me whenever we see each other, please? Now, Jazakumullah khairan. I'm very happy to see you, considering that I have had a great experience without being annoyed by many questions. And last time I was here, it was very bad. Thank you. Um, uh, I wish I were like you, loving all scholars like this, that finding any fault you have a great, you are enjoying, and a great privilege, a great blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya Maulana al-Fadil. Hopefully your heart will find guidance, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you so much. Um, More, inshallah, unannounced live sessions. So I'm not sure how you'll be notified. I think YouTube might send you a notification or something. أو we rely on التوفيق, توفيق الله عز وجل, and then this will make us ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for more tawfiq, more success. Yes, بارك الله فيكم, جزاكم الله خيرا, والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.